In this video, today we will talk about the story behind FBI. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, is one of the most iconic and powerful law enforcement agencies in the world. Its story is deeply intertwined with the history of the United States, reflecting the nation's evolving challenges and priorities in the realms of crime, security, and justice. From its inception in the early 20th century to its current role as a leader in counterterrorism and cybersecurity, the FBI's journey is marked by significant milestones, controversies, and a relentless pursuit of justice. The origins: a response to rising crime. The origins of the FBI can be traced back to the early 1900s, a period of rapid change in American society. The country was experiencing unprecedented growth, urbanization, and industrialization, which brought with it new forms of crime that local law enforcement agencies struggled to handle. The need for a centralized federal law enforcement body became increasingly apparent as crimes such as bank robbery, kidnapping, and organized crime began to cross state lines. In 1908, responding to these challenges, Attorney General Charles Bonaparte, under the direction of President Theodore Roosevelt, created a special force of federal investigators within the Department of Justice. This force, initially known as the Bureau of Investigation, BOI, was tasked with investigating violations of federal law, particularly those related to antitrust issues, land fraud, and other significant crimes that required federal attention. Early growth and challenges. In its early years, the BOI was a small and relatively obscure agency, facing numerous challenges, including limited resources and jurisdictional conflicts with state and local law enforcement. Despite these obstacles, the BOI gradually expanded its role, particularly in enforcing the Mann Act of 1910, which targeted human trafficking and prostitution. This marked the beginning of the Bureau's long-standing involvement in combating organized crime. World War I significantly expanded the BOI's responsibilities, as the agency was tasked with investigating espionage, sabotage, and other activities that threatened national security. The Espionage Act of 1917 and the Sedition Act of 1918 gave the BOI broader authority to monitor and prosecute individuals suspected of disloyalty or subversive activities. This period also marked the agency's first foray into domestic surveillance, a practice that would later become one of its most controversial aspects. The Hoover era, shaping the modern FBI. The appointment of J. Edgar Hoover as director of the BOI in 1924 was a turning point in the agency's history. Hoover, a former librarian and DOJ employee, was only 29 years old at the time, but his impact on the Bureau would be profound and lasting. Determined to transform the BOI into a professional and efficient law enforcement agency, Hoover introduced a series of reforms that laid the foundation for the modern FBI. Under Hoover's leadership, the BOI became known for its meticulous record-keeping and the development of advanced investigative techniques. The agency established a centralized fingerprint repository and began using scientific methods, such as ballistics and handwriting analysis, to solve crimes. Hoover's emphasis on technology and data collection would become a hallmark of the FBI, distinguishing it from other law enforcement agencies. The battle against organized crime. The 1920s and 1930s were a period of significant turmoil in the United States, marked by the rise of organized crime during Prohibition. The 18th Amendment, which banned the sale, production, and transportation of alcohol, created a lucrative black market for bootleggers and mobsters. Criminal organizations, led by figures like Al Capone, quickly became powerful and violent, posing a significant challenge to law enforcement. The success of the BOI in taking down high-profile criminals led to a significant expansion of its powers. In 1935, the Bureau of Investigation was officially renamed the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, reflecting its growing influence and authority. Congress also passed legislation granting the FBI jurisdiction over a wide range of federal crimes, including bank robbery, kidnapping, and interstate crime, solidifying its role as the nation's premier law enforcement agency. World War II and the Cold War, a focus on national security. World War II brought new challenges for the FBI, as the agency was tasked with investigating espionage, sabotage, and other threats to national security. The FBI played a critical role in uncovering Axis spy rings and preventing acts of sabotage on American soil. Hoover's emphasis on loyalty and patriotism during this period further solidified the FBI's reputation as a guardian of national security. During the Cold War, the FBI had also engaged in domestic surveillance of suspected communists and other subversives, a practice that reached its peak during the Red Scare of the 1950s. Hoover, who was intensely anti-communist, launched extensive investigations into individuals and organizations suspected of having ties to the Soviet Union. The FBI's actions during this period, including its role in the McCarthy hearings and the persecution of suspected communists, have been criticized for violating civil liberties and contributing to a climate of fear and paranoia. The Civil Rights Era, a complex legacy. The 1960s were a time of profound social change in the United States, marked by the Civil Rights Movement and widespread protests against racial segregation and discrimination. The FBI's role during this period is one of the most controversial chapters in its history. While the agency was responsible for enforcing federal civil rights laws and investigating hate crimes, it was also involved in efforts to undermine civil rights leaders, most notably Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Despite these controversies, the FBI did play a role in advancing civil rights, particularly in the investigation and prosecution of racially motivated crimes. The agency's work in cases such as the murder of civil rights workers in Mississippi, the Mississippi Burning case, and the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, helped bring justice to the victims and demonstrated the federal government's commitment to protecting civil rights. Modernization and the War on Terror. The latter half of the 20th century and the early 21st century saw the FBI continue to evolve in response to new and emerging threats. The rise of international terrorism, cybercrime, and organized crime networks presented new challenges for the agency, leading to significant changes in its structure and operations. In the 21st century, the FBI has also become a leader in cybersecurity, responding to the growing threat of cyber attacks and data breaches. The agency's cyber division works to identify and disrupt cybercriminals and state-sponsored hackers, as well as to protect critical infrastructure from cyber threats. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comment section below. Before you go, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.